Welcome to Capturing Kenosha Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Barlow. We created Capturing Kenosha Podcast to promote the natural and architectural beauty found in Kenosha County by featuring the pictures of local photographers. Each episode, we will be joined by a local photographer who will share their expertise and passion for photography in Kenosha. Today on Capturing Kenosha Podcast, we'll be talking to Mike Majewski. Mike is one of our moderators at Capturing Kenosha Facebook page. If you've been following our page for any length of time, you probably have seen his many beautiful pictures and unique perspectives of Kenosha and its downtown. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
So, Mike, just want to kick it off and ask you just to kind of explain who you are, what you do for a living, how you kind of got into photography and all that good stuff.
Well, I've always been into photography since I was a little kid, always loved it. My father always had movie cameras and still cameras and did a lot of it. And probably I started when I was maybe 5 or 6. I would pick up his movie camera and me and all my goofy buddies in the neighborhood would make little movies with his 8mm film camera. So I've always been interested in it. And I was hoping that I could do something with it as a profession, but never dreamed that I would. So when I got to Columbia College is where I went, I was always interested in film and thought that I would love to shoot film. But I started thinking that I always kind of wanted a paycheck every week too. And you really, in movie business, you work from movie to movie. So you might be working straight for 6 months and then you might be off for 3 months. And I'm like, I can't do that. So I started thinking, maybe I'll, look at more in television, see if I can do something in that field. So I went to our placement office at Columbia College and they had 2 openings. One was at WTTW and one was at Channel 32 WFLD TV. And at the time it was still owned by Metro Media. So I put in resumes for both places and got a call back from Channel 32 immediately and went and spoke to the chief engineer there. And he liked that I was able to put systems together and troubleshoot gear and things like that. So he offered me a job in the maintenance department, which I really didn't want to do, even though I was capable of doing it. I wanted to shoot. And he said, he's like, that's the only position we have right now, but we're going to be starting news at some point, and you can, be the first person in news. And I'm like, okay, as long as, you understand that I don't want to fix tape machines my whole life. I want to be a photographer. And he's like, absolutely. So he was, very generous on letting me do both. While I was in maintenance, I would shoot occasional things with some of the other photographers there. We used to do a show called PM Magazine, and I would fill in for the main photographer who would go on vacation for that. And then we would shoot promos and all sorts of things that were, going on TV. And it was just, an incredible start to my photography career. But I was never really a still photographer. I was always interested in still photography, but never expanded my majors or anything like that at school in still photography, although I wish I had because I just ran out of time.
Right. And so what do you currently do right now?
Well, so I'm still working at Channel 32. I've been there for 42 years. And now all we do is news. And we do, all the news that you see on TV. I've been doing it for 42 years. Everything that's happens in Chicago, that's usually a big story. I have something to do with it. Okay. I was working evenings for the longest time, and now I'm just switched over to days, which is nice, so I can have my evenings and watch a little football on the weekends.
Mm-hmm. Do you just do the shooting, or do you do the editing as well, or what process do you have in that?
Well, when we first started, there was a lot of photographers and editors, but as computers have been introduced into the E&G world, it became a lot easier to travel with a laptop and be able to plug your video straight into the computer and do the editing. So I do both. but we still have a few editors there who, we feed things in all the time, through the live trucks. And now we use a box called a Live View, which is basically a live truck in a box, which can be worn on your back now. It's amazing. And when I first started, we built the first live trucks at the place too, at Channel 32. So I was involved in taking the trucks home, and we wired them all up, and we built them for our news department. We had only 2 of them back then. And now, it's just, a lot of people don't even use live trucks anymore. Sometimes you have to use it for a satellite truck. But most of everything now is through these backpacks. And I shoot usually 2 or 3 news stories a day, and sometimes do a live shot. And but now that I'm on mornings, I'm not doing as many live shots, but I did 1 million live shots and 1 million stories.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. So how did you get into still photography then?
Well, it's my therapy for TV news, basically.
I was going to ask that question a little bit later, but since you already kind of brought it up, how do you balance work, which is somewhat like your hobby?
Yeah, I enjoy photography, and I do like shooting news stories. But unfortunately, a lot of the news stories that I shoot are, crime scenes and things like that. So it's not as creative. Mm-hmm. So I like to get my still cameras and go out and be creative and, get my fingers into that.
So when did you start still photography? I cut you off earlier.
I had still cameras when I was very young. Okay. And, never learned how to develop and do all those sorts of great things. But, was always taking pictures. And I still have, someone just contacted me about it the other day, asked me if I still had my old Yashica camera, and I do. It's down in my basement, and I just looked at it the other day, and I think I'm going to take it out and take a picture of it, because that was the first still camera I ever had back when we were shooting film. Mm-hmm. And, would get those rolls of 24 and 36 and blow them off and never know what you had. Yep. So, until you got them home and developed them, we used to take them to a place in Chicago called Scrudlands. And it was like you drop it in a little mailbox there, and then you go back and get them. And I remember it was not a cheap hobby to have. But so once all I've been shooting video cameras, since the 80s. So once the still cameras became more of a video camera with a mirrorless camera, and you could actually see what you were shooting through the viewfinder, I was just like, wow, this is just a whole new thing. It's just so cool. And it's great to be able to, adjust your shutter and ISO and f-stops and see it happening, right to your eyes. I enjoy shooting sunrises a lot. And with my DSLRs, after I do a session, my eyeballs were burning out all the time because that thing is magnified right into your eye. And so once the mirrorless came out, I'm like, oh, I'm getting one of these immediately because this is just going to be like shooting my video camera. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and that's last 5-10 years, that technology. So you've seen really the development of camera gear. So what do you shoot with right now?
I use a Nikon Z9, which is like their flagship camera. I started off with a Z6 and knew right away that I needed, better stuff. Mm-hmm. And I stuck with Nikon because, I had Nikon DSLRs prior to that and still cameras, that I think it was called F1 or something like that, or F4 that we had when the still cameras come out. I've had so many camera bodies, and I've finally gathered them all up and took them to a place in Indianapolis, a camera store down there, and sold everything off because I just had drawers full of great camera bodies that were never used, and it was horrible. But the great thing about it was when I gathered all those up, a lot of them still had cards inside of them. Oh, really? And was able to pull them out and load them on a computer and see a lot of old great pictures that I never remember that I took. I can't remember a lot of things. Some of the stories that I've worked on TV. I mean, we've done so many great things, and met all the presidents from Reagan. I've gotten to do press conferences and availabilities with every one of them, and some of them more than others. Barack Obama was a great one because he's from Chicago, and we used to cover him when he was, not even a state senator, So that was fun to cover him. And then when he became a U.S. senator, he invited myself and my reporter, Jack Conity, back then, to his office in the Capitol building. And we went, he was down in the basement of the Capitol building and couldn't have been more gracious with us. And then went on to become, presidential candidate, and we covered him for all that. And then I was there in Grant Park the night that he was elected. Beautiful November night, which I was dreading, thinking about being standing outside at Grant Park in November for that election. But it turned out to be one of the most beautiful, magical nights ever. It was really nice.
Just speaking of these different types of opportunities you've had through video, you've also had a lot of different still photography trips. I know you kind of mentioned to me in the past, or a few of us in the past, that you went looking at eclipses and joined different people that you never knew and went chasing all around the world for certain shots. So
yeah, we because I've always been really into astronomy and enjoy. Back in, I think it was 1987, I took my still camera and threw it in my car. It might have been 84 now. I can't remember the exact year, but it was in the 80s. And I said to my mother, I'm driving down to Florida. She's like, what? I said, I'm driving down to Florida because Halley's Comet is supposed to appear and I want to see it. And she's like, are you crazy? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, but I'm going to see it. So I drove down there. It took me, 2 days to get down there. And I drove along the coastline. I got as far as St. Augustine. And it was just before the sun started coming up. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning or so. And I can't remember what month it was, but I'm driving in my little Jeep down A1A or whatever the road is along St. Augustine there, and I pull over, and I'm like, I couldn't see it. I was looking for it all as I'm driving through Florida, trying to see, and I'm like, I can't see it. So I'm like, I'm just going to pull over here at one of these beaches when I can find a pullout. And so there was a park there, like a state park, and I pulled over and I set up my tripod. And I looked through the viewfinder of that old Nikon camera with probably a 200 millimeter lens on it, and it took me about 10 minutes to figure out where it was. And when I looked through the viewfinder, I could see it. And I'm like, oh no, there it is right there. I said, this is it. I'm going to grab a shot. So, back in those old film days, you never knew what you had. And believe me, I am still a novice learning about settings and, sensitivity and ISO. And every time I grab my camera, all my settings are all over the place.
I know what you mean. Kills me.
It is. No, it's fine. I still have the picture at my house, and it's Halley's Comet was the first of those types of things that I remember going to get. But yes, I have a producer friend at CNN, Bill Kirkos, who I've done a lot of adventures with. We've been to a lot of countries together. He's a great guy to travel with. And I have a lot of miles for all the traveling that I do for football and everything. And I said, hey, do you want to go to Shanghai to see a solar eclipse? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So we booked our tickets to Shanghai, and we got there and we met all sorts of great people. We went to a couple of bars and restaurants and met people who were English speaking. And told them what we were doing, and they're like, oh, we're going to go see the eclipse tomorrow, so you should come with us. Or I think it was a couple of days later still. We still had a couple of days before it happened. And so we're like, okay, great. We'll meet you. We'll meet you here. And they gave us our phone numbers, so we were going to meet them to go shoot the eclipse. And then the weather started failing miserably. And so in Shanghai, it was going to rain all day long. So I looked to my buddy Bill and I was like, we need to get somewhere where we can see the eclipse. We came around the world to shoot this thing and we're going to miss it. So we jumped on a high-speed train in downtown Shanghai and we just went west in the country.
Okay.
And so we went 500. I said, where can we go 500 miles west of here? Because the weather's going to start clearing out that way. So we get to this small little town we thought it was going to be called Wuhan, which has since then become quite infamous.
Yeah, I would say.
And so we met these great people on the train. Most of the people on the train were Chinese, but I saw a couple of English people on there from England. And I went to get a beer out of the beer car or the refreshment car, and we started chatting. I'm like, are you guys here for the eclipse by any chance? And they said, we are. And I said, wow. I said, we just got on this train and we have no idea where we're going. Can we go with you? He's like, yes. Me and my friend John met a Chinese woman online a couple of months ago, and she's going to take us to a park to go see the solar eclipse, and you're welcome to come with us. So we met the woman that they had met online, and she was nice enough to set us up at the hotel where John was staying and his friend. And we all met the next morning and went downstairs, and she took us to this place called Yellow Crane Park, which was phenomenal, and Chinese architecture, and saw the eclipse coming up there. And that was, I think that might have been the first total solar eclipse that I saw. And since then, then afterwards, Bill went back to the Chicago, and I went to Beijing to go see the Great Wall, because I figured as long as I'm here, I might as well go get some pictures of that and, experience that. And when I was on the plane flying to Beijing, the whole plane was filled with people looking at their cameras, looking at stills of the eclipse. And I started chatting with them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we go to every eclipse. We're going to, South America in 3 months to go see that one." I'm like, "Well, I don't have that kind of money, or time, but that would be fun to do." So, but I've seen, I think 4 or 5 of them now, and I'm pretty big eclipse guy and all that sort of stuff. The last one that I shot with my daughter, we went down to Poplar Grove, I think it was called, in Missouri. So we went down there, and then the one prior to that, we went to Carbondale area south, down by Giant City, in that area down there. Had no place picked out in particular, thinking where we were going to see it, because they're both very high in the sky. So it wasn't like I was going to shoot it against any sort of background, unfortunately. Right. So, but I remember getting a partial one here in Kenosha coming up over right next to the lighthouse. And it was a beautiful, clear morning, and you could see a nice cut out of the sun, which was very cool. Unfortunately, it was just about a quarter, but it was still fun to see. And it's always fun to catch and try to figure out good things to shoot with, which I use the lighthouse a lot.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask next, because if you look at most of your pictures that you post on Capture Kenosha, you have the lighthouse, and it's either the sun or the moon, and it's setting or rising, and some phenomenal pictures. So what is your attraction to that, or what is it exactly that draws you to that?
I love doing the calculations and using maps like Google Maps and photo pills, I think it's called, to figure out good spots to maximize the size of the sun. The further back you can get, the more you can zoom in on the lighthouse to make the sun and the moon look gigantic. And a lot of people accuse me of photoshopping it, because when I'm seeing it through the viewfinder, my jaw is dropping. It's fun to be able to do that. And I just got a decent one last week of a bunch of teenagers or young men on the edge of the pier.
Yeah, that was cool.
And the moon came up. It was incredible. As soon as it broke the horizon, it was still daylight out. It was still a little bit daylight out, but as soon as it came over the horizon, you could see it. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And I was there with a bunch of other photographers who were shooting the lighthouse and stuff. And I thought to myself, no. I was like, I got to see those guys fishing and the moon like as big as I can get it. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it any larger than it was because you can only get back to about the water plant there to line it up correctly. But if I could have got back all the way to Anna's on the Lake or Fifth Avenue, Sixth Avenue, whatever that is over there, those are really great shots when you can make them. The moon and the sun just look so huge from that location over there.
So let me just make sure I got it straight. You did not Photoshop any of that.
No photo. I don't use Photoshop.
I know, but
I do use Lightroom a little bit and
Right.
For saturation, as we say, and sometimes to dehaze a little bit. But no, I mean, honestly, I think that sort of work is great for people who enjoy doing it. And like I said, I have an art appreciation because I was always an illustrator and things like that when I was younger. And I think that's great, but I just don't think it's a real photograph to me. And I just like real photographs. So when I take the Milky Way, I always just take a single frame, single shot, and I'll experiment with my f-stop and my shutter speed and my ISO. Typically, like for Milky Way, I'll start at like 11 seconds and I'll work my way up to 25 until you start seeing, the stars and everything start smearing in the sky. And then, there's a formula for that too, 500 rule or whatever it is. And I don't know it off the top of my head because I'm really not a still photographer. I just kind of dabble in it. And I just remember a funny story I think it was like 2 months ago when there was a beautiful rainbow happening over the lighthouse. And I
remember that day.
Yeah, I could see the sun coming out to the west and it had just rained. And I'm like, I got to get down to the harbor. So I went tearing down there. And as I was driving past like the boathouse, I looked to the left and it's starting to form and it's big and bright and beautiful. And I just had the biggest smile on my face. I parked the car like right as I turned onto that side street there that the, 56th or whatever avenue that is where all the houses are along the harbor market there.
Yep.
And stopped like right there. And I was so excited. And it started raining again a little bit, but it was just me. And there was one other photographer there. And then I saw a woman with an iPhone and she was just like, isn't it unbelievable? And I'm like, I just had the biggest smile on my face. So I'm running down the harbor, down the bike path there as I'm seeing it. And I'm, shooting all these photos and I'm getting all these great shots looking at them through the viewfinder. But then when I looked at them a few minutes later, I realized that my camera had been set up for shooting birds in flight, which is a very fast shutter speed.
Yeah.
And which I never really ever do is use auto ISO, but for some reason it was set in auto ISO at that time. So the noise level was just astronomical in those photos. And thankfully there are programs that can make them look somewhat better. I completely blew that first rainbow shot because I was just so excited. And like I said, I'm still learning all that settings and everything myself and experiment with it and love to dabble in it and, get some good results sometimes.
It makes me feel good that other people struggle like I do. But what I remember that day too, because I was on my way down and I stopped where I thought it might be, right behind the lighthouse, and it wasn't. And I took some pictures thinking, I got time to get down there. And so I got back in my car, drove down,
and then go
on. I'm watching you walk away and I'm getting there and I get out and it disappears.
And I'm like, just as fast as it can. Yeah.
And I was like, darn it.
Yeah, so that was it was so bright and beautiful. And then, it can just come and go real fast. I mean, this year has been really great for rainbows. I think that we had I think I shot like 3 really good ones down there this year. Yeah, some good rain and you got to wait for it to float off to the east and hope the sun pops out.
Well, I was going to say, I saw one of your photos too recently or this summer where you had a beautiful lightning across behind the lighthouse, and that was pretty sweet. I love thunderstorms, lightning.
Yeah, it wasn't the lightning bolt that I had hoped for.
Right.
I preferred a vertical one there. It was horizontal, but it still looked pretty cool.
Yeah, that's I last summer I was able to get one that is right next to it, behind it. Again, didn't have my settings perfectly, so it was good, but not what you're hoping for.
You know, I found that I tried so many times to get a picture of lightning and set it up so it auto shoots and everything, and I found that I just started shooting, 4K video and export JPEG from the video because it's just so erratic to catch it, and then to catch one that you actually like. I mean, you can always catch lightning in the sky, but to catch one that's like in a good spot, and like I said, that was a horizontal lightning, which I would have preferred vertical. I like to shoot. I shoot everything horizontal through the camera, but for looking at it on a telephone, which it seems to me like most everybody is doing, looking at these photos and the photography Facebook page on their phones, I try to keep that in mind. So I try to shoot as many things I can in vertical, so I can crop it in a vertical mode. But almost all my pictures are typically shot horizontal.
I never even really thought about it that way. Do you do a lot of that kind of thing? I mean, it sounds like it, like you're talking about getting the moon or the sun really big behind the lighthouse. How much prepping do you do before you go shooting, or is it more just spontaneous?
I'll prep a little bit on which lenses I'll choose to take. I have a 400 millimeter, which is, a very good lens at low light. And I like to shoot that, but sometimes it's not enough. Or sometimes it's too much. Depends on where you're standing and what you're shooting, So I'll take, a couple different lenses with me, and it's really hit and miss, and sometimes I don't have the right lenses with me at all.
Okay. So just for the listeners, if they want a shot like you had of those guys fishing with the moon super big and the lighthouse behind it or in front of it, I actually wouldn't be behind it, obviously, but what do they need to know or think of going into that?
Well, I think that shot with the moon and the fishing was a 600 millimeter lens. I have a 180 to 600, and I believe it was at 600. And I also believe, because I have a full frame camera, that you can switch it between FX mode full frame and DX mode, which is crop. I believe that was in a crop sensor because they were pretty far away from us. Probably, I don't know what the distance was. I thought it was pretty far, though. I mean, you could barely see them from where we were standing. So, that pier is probably almost quarter mile long, I guess, or so. So what I try to do is always get as far back from if you want the moon and the sun to look big, you got to get back as far as you can from the subject. So April 9th, 10th, 11th, and September 9th, 10th, and 11th are the dates for the Kenosha Lighthouse, where you can get on the street next to Anna's on the lake over there, and you can zoom all the way in as far as you can. I've even stood over by the Veterans Memorial fountain and waited for cars to pass in between me so I could get a clean shot, because it really does. The further you move back, and it might only be, another 50, 60 feet, it's going to make the moon and the sun look just so much bigger. And I always love to get, I do love shooting the lighthouse alone, but I just love when people are in the shots too. And when I saw the moon coming up with those guys out there fishing, I'm like, oh, this is just perfect. This is what I wanted. And a lot of times that doesn't happen in the mornings. There's not a lot of people out, going out there. Because I don't know why you would go all the way out to the end of the lighthouse to shoot the sun and moon coming up, because I always think, I always want the lighthouse in the shot too. You're going to get that same sun anywhere along the shoreline. So it doesn't matter if you walk all the way out there or not. Take a shot of the lighthouse and get the sun in it too. And then you really just have to play with your settings. Once the sun starts rising, you have to take that shutter speed way up to like 1/4000th of a second at times. And I'm usually shooting pretty low ISO, like under 800. And depends on what you want in focus too. Like today I shot, there was a kayaker out there and I wanted the lighthouse and the kayaker in focus. So you have to, go with your f-stops all the way up to like 16 or 22 or whatever you can get away with. Sometimes there's not enough light to do that. But if you want that, soft, creamy background where the lighthouse is out of focus, then you want to shoot at your lowest one, which would, on that lens, I think is 6.3. Which is nice, but, f4 is where you want to be on some of your nature shots. And I know some people have f4 lenses, but I don't. I got a f4.5. That's my 400 millimeter, which is
That's what
beautiful.
mine is too, yeah. Do you do you shoot wildlife in landscape?
I used to shoot a lot of landscape, and I would find that a lot of them, even though I can appreciate great landscape shots, to me, a lot of them end up looking the same.
Yeah. Nice.
And, it's beautiful. And when I go out to Glacier National Park and go hiking, believe me, I blow through 10,000 frames too, and I'll look at them all and I'll be like, yeah, it's nice, but it's just a wide shot of the mountain. So I'm always kind of looking for something different, really. And when I saw those guys fishing, I knew that was different because I knew the moon was great and I knew the lighthouse was great, but I just didn't want to shoot just the moon and the lighthouse coming up that night when I saw those guys out there and got a good exposure on them.
So creativity is important to you.
Yeah. I'm always looking for a little something different. I know a lot of the professional photographers in Chicago, and they are great photographers. And I notice that all the time that, they're always looking for something a little different. And that's what you really have to do. Don't just, take a shot at a lighthouse.
Right.
Look for something different. Look for something in the foreground or anything that's just a little bit different. That people really like that. I do shoot a lot of wildlife. Unfortunately, a lot of it's not in Kenosha, so I can't post it on our website. But I enjoy shooting eagles very much.
Yeah,
so.
me too.
And I've been doing it for the last 3 years now, going out to Iowa and the Mississippi River, and it's just a show out there. It's just so much fun, and there's a lot of spots that I've now learned about that you can get really close to them. And ideally you want to fill the frame if you can. I mean, a lot of those animals move really fast though, and you can't because you can't keep up with them. And I have an 800 millimeter lens that, it's like trying to shoot through a straw. When you're looking through it, you can't find anything out there. So you got to look over the top of the camera and, then look in the viewfinder, look over the top, look into the viewfinder to try to catch those birds in action with that 800. So, it depends on how far things are, which I can use. The nice thing about the 180 to 600 is you can zoom out and, see where the action is and then zoom back in quickly. With the 800, you don't have that option. It's just 800, straight 800, which it takes phenomenal pictures, but it takes a lot of practice to use it.
I love taking pictures of eagles as well. And I'll go up to like Sauk Prairie or that area, Prairie du Sac, I think it's called. And they got, during the winter, they all congregate there, or up to Kakana. We've done that many times. That one can be a little challenging because they like to stay in the middle, and then it's pretty far. But
we'll have to go this winter.
Absolutely,
January, February is the time to go.
I'm all in for that.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and I usually try to get out there and back in one day. I'll leave at 4:00 in the morning and get out there for sunrise. And the great thing about the Mississippi is, you got both sides of the river. So you can get the sun behind you for, all your morning stuff. You stay on the east side, and all your afternoon stuff, you cruise back up north and hit the spots that are good sites for shooting from west to the east for sunset.
Yeah. My last winter, I got one eagle coming down, catching a fish. But it was between the trees, and I thought I got it, but there was one branch that stuck through, and that's what it focused on. So he was...
It can be frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
Or the backgrounds, too. Sometimes the camera will lock in the background.
Yeah.
So
because they're moving fast.
They're moving fast.
I got lucky, though. He actually came all the way across with the fish in his talons and right in front of me, and I got a pretty good picture of that. So I was still excited, but... that money shot I've always been looking for, was
Him going
just-
in the water and
just
grabbing it. Yeah, they're
blurry.
Well, you'll get him. You'll get him when we go out this winter.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. So you also, I don't even know how to even explain it, but like, you know how you have the statues and the stuff like that. Are you looking to use those as well?
I'm
Or-
looking for anything really, and what I'll hope for is some seagulls or some geese or some birds flying through. And I mean, you got to be fast to grab focus on them, and so they're not out of focus. Or if you want them out of focus, that's fine too.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I'm always trying to find something different. Really, honestly, I shot some great hummingbird shots in the last couple of weeks. I was out at a friend's farm who has a lot of flowers, and she prefers the wide. She calls them environmental shots, and
Gotcha.
and they're beautiful. I was like, I think it might be just from shooting TV news so long. I just need to get in there close, and I don't mind cropping off the edge of wings and things like that because I had about a dozen great encounters with bumblebees and yellow jackets and the hummingbirds. And their faces are just phenomenal. And everyone can't believe they're even real. They don't even look real.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this shot is just so fantastic and just so happy with it. And, you hope to, I just hold my finger on that trigger, and just keep blowing off shots because you don't know which one you're going to like, where the wings are good, up and perfect. So I'd rather have 20 shots that are not so good and get one out of it that is good than, just wait to think you're going to get that one shot. You're never going to get that just single shot. So I would definitely suggest put your camera on its fastest, shutter activation. So you can, if your camera shoots 10 frames a second, or some of them shoot 20 frames, and I think some of the Sonys even shoot 30 frames per second now. You have a ton of pictures that you're never going to use, but you're going to have that one shot in those bunch that you're going to love because the wings are going to be in the perfect position, and the fish is going to be in the perfect position. And the background is going to be in the perfect position. You got to just, I have hard drives and hard drives full of stuff that I've never used.
Do you, when you put them in, because you said you use Lightroom, correct?
Yeah, I do.
When you put them in Lightroom, do you actually take all your pictures and download them, or do you go, all right, I have 50 of the same one basically, and then you just kind of hitting every other one, or how do you do that? Because I know I'll do the same thing, and I'll be like, every other third one I'll take you can, because sometimes it's so small and you can't quite really see what you have until you get it on the big screen.
Right.
But I'm like, I don't want to dump them all in, but do you?
No, I don't dump them all in. What I'll do is, for instance, that last time I went and shot hummingbirds, unfortunately, I was shooting at 120 frames per second because that Nikon will do that on smaller JPEGs. And because I was filling the frame so nicely with the birds, I could not have to crop as much. So I had, I think, I want to say 40,000 pictures. So, but a lot of them are all the same. And I just hold the button down as I'm looking at the preview and find, the area that I want, because a lot of them, I use a pre-capture now too, which is available on my camera. Yeah. And you don't miss all those shots when they're like jumping off branches and stuff like that. I'm sure a lot of people who shoot birds in flight will think you have the shot, and then you'll look at it and it's gone, or at the very far left-hand side of the frame, or the very far edge of the frame, and you missed the shot. But with the pre-roll now, you can get that, except at shooting at 120 frames a second, you're going to have, 400 pictures that have absolutely nothing on it. And then once the bird starts flying, you're going to have the shot that you want, but you're right, you do have a ton of pictures to go through. But I don't spend a lot of time looking at all that stuff. I always remember like kind of what was a good area and what was a decent shot. So I'll narrow it down, and I might make a file. I think on that, when I shot those 50,000 that one day with the hummingbirds, I think I narrowed it down to like 80 shots that were pretty decent, and I put them in a file, and I did download all those 80 into Lightroom, and then I probably really ended up liking like 12 of them. So, yeah, but, I'm sitting there all day. So just shooting hummingbirds and getting sunburned.
Isn't it amazing how far technology's come? You couldn't do that.
No.
30 years ago.
I mean,
10
even
years
shooting
ago.
wildlife back in the film days, when we used to go camping with all my buddies out to Colorado and Montana. Yeah. I mean, I got one single shot of a moose. That's it. You weren't shooting 40, 50, 100, 2,000 shots. Now you can, because you just delete it and start over again, which is the great thing about digital compared to even tape, even the old tape. Even though you could erase the tape, you still had to have tapes to put it on, So, the new cards and everything, the new technology for still photography is so much fun, and it's just amazing. And another thing with Lightroom, a lot of times I've shot moon rises, and because the sun is just setting and there's still daylight in the sky, my camera will do an auto color balance on it. And sometimes it just doesn't know anymore that now it's becoming night. So some of those shots are looking blue, but it doesn't matter because you can fix all that stuff. As long as your exposure is good and you don't blow like the moon out, you can get the craters and all that stuff back, and you can fix almost anything that went wrong with the pictures with Lightroom these days. And if you shoot RAW, it's better than JPEG, so you have more latitude to fix all those things. So I try to expose on, and make sure the moon's not blown out so I can still see some of those highlights. And sometimes if the subject in front of it is a little bit dark, it's not a problem. You can take those levels up and make that look really nice.
I took pictures as a novice, just like my wife had a camera with film, and I look back at some of those pictures and go, wow, I actually got a decent picture here and there. But it really makes me just appreciate how good those guys were back then to, you only had, like you said, 12, 24, 36, whatever it was, shots, and you better get it.
You have to get it right.
And now you can really adapt them to what you're trying to do. So
it's still nice to get it right in the camera, though.
I agree.
Because when you could put something into Lightroom and not have to do much to it, boy, is that nice.
Yes, well, that, and it just makes you feel good, like, hey, I actually did all the correct things at this one time. And so I totally get that too. So yeah. You were kind of just speaking a little bit, you like to add a little saturation potentially.
Yeah, I not so much the saturation, but I like the vibrance. It makes the colors just really pop real nicely. I mean, sometimes I'll oversaturate a little bit. I'm guilty of it.
Okay. I was going to say, do you lean one way? Because I was telling you to be off air. Our next podcast, we're kind of going to talk about vibrance, saturation. Where do you fall? So where do you kind of fall on that a little bit?
I think it really is, with each picture, what really appeals to me, because I'll be looking at a lot of those eagle pictures and things that I'm shooting out at the Mississippi, and I'll increase like the yellows a little bit for their talons and their beaks, and then a lot of times I don't really want to do much else with it, in the wintertime, there's not a lot of color out there. Sometimes you get those blue skies, which are beautiful, but I try. Soaring eagles are beautiful, but I have thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures of them. And, it doesn't do anything for me. I want to see them at the water, and I want to see them with other eagles. And when I first started shooting birds in flight, and I've only been doing it for 3 or 4 years, really, since COVID, when everybody went bird crazy, I caught myself when there would be interactions between the birds, like stopping shooting. And I'm like, I'd load all that stuff into my computer. I'm like, what are you doing? Hold that button down. Those are the best shots when their claws are going at each other and their beaks are flying, and they just look so great and animated, and their legs are going every which way. And so I've really taught myself to just hold that thing down and don't be afraid of blowing off all those pictures, because you can just erase that card.
Yeah, that's a great point. Do you have any bucket shot lists? Bucket. Yeah, I said that right. I think right.
Well, I'm always looking for those eagle shots when they're when they're, yeah.
Okay.
I love those, but I'd love to get the osprey going in. I don't have a really good, I got great shots of them with fish in their claws and everything flying away, but I don't have that, symmetrical. I'd love to get that symmetrical looking shot where, you're right in the exact right spot where it's going into the water and, the background looks nice and, you're not too far left, too far right. Believe me, I am the biggest critic with my own pictures, and I'll go back and look and be like, why didn't I move 2 inches more to the left? And I'm literally talking 2 inches.
Yeah.
And I found that out, by being a photographer in news. When you're in the locker room, an inch honestly can mean either you getting a shot or not getting a shot. When you're talking to guys, with 30, 40 reporters around and, 7 other cameras, you can, 1 inch can make a difference in whether you're getting the shot or not. So, I'll always look back on my pictures and I'm never happy 100% with them because I'm always thinking like, oh, if I had just moved this or had the, the lighthouse a little more that way or this way or whatever. It's just, it's
Do you have a shot that you're just like, this is my best or favorite shot? Like,
no, I don't. I really don't. But I've gone back and looked at photos that I didn't even know I took. Like I'll see them on a website or something like that. And I'm like, oh, that's a really nice shot of an eagle. I'm like, oh, that's one of mine. And I'll be like, well, I guess I kind of do have some decent shots. But believe me, when I'm looking through the viewfinder, I'm never happy.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far yet. I don't think. I've never looked at someone's and go, oh, that's mine. But no, that's kind of cool. I was gonna say, I think having a bucket list is always kind of beneficial because it just gives you something to kind of like get you out there if you kind of struggle. Obviously, it doesn't sound like you struggle getting out there because you'll find something or whatnot. But
the strangest thing that I've found shooting stills is I'll be walking away from whatever site I go to shoot something, and I'll turn around and I'll look back and I'll take 20 more pictures. And when I get back home and throw them in the computer, I'm like, those were the best shots. And don't be afraid to turn around again. I have got 30 to 40% of my shots are the ones that I've thought I was done and I thought I had the shots I wanted. And I'll turn around and I'll be like, let me just look one more time and grab another couple shots. And I'm like, there you go. That's the one. I'm glad I turned around again. And it happens to me all the time.
That's an awesome piece of advice. Me and Mike and Andy went up to take pictures of the great gray owls. And we had taken pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures. And then we were driving away. And the one we'd been taking had flown over to a little post. And I'm in the car, but my camera's sitting next to me. And I just rolled down the window and I just started snapping pictures. They're like, what are you doing? People are, let's go. And I'm like, just give me a second. I got back and it was my favorite picture.
Those are the best ones.
I was like, look at the background. I didn't even notice that when I was taking it. I was just.
It happens all the time.
Oh, so I love that piece of advice. Just don't be afraid to turn around.
Turn around one more time and look.
So that's awesome. Well, I just appreciate you coming on and giving us your wisdom, your insight, your just perspective. Your shots are always amazing. We can always count on you for shots that we're always like, oh, I wish I would have got it. And then we go on Capturing Kenosha Facebook page and it's like, there it is. Mike's got it. And then I go, man, I just need to follow him. So I do really appreciate all your creativity and what you do. So.
Well, it's a lot of fun, and I think the digital world made it even more fun because there's no chance back in the old film days that I'd be taking the pictures that I take now. It's just, it wouldn't have happened. So thanks to the technology of today that I've got shots like that.
Well, you got a lot of skill too. So don't sell yourself short. I'm guessing that we're going to probably try to get some of your pictures up with this podcast. So
okay.
You give me one of those eagle ones that I want to see. That'd be awesome. Even though it's not in Kenosha, that'd be awesome. But again, thank you for coming on. Well, that's all we have for this podcast. I want to thank Mike for joining us today. Additionally, if you haven't ordered your 2026 Capturing Kenosha calendar, you can do so by going to capturingkenosha.com. Till next time, everyone, I want to encourage you to get out there and capture Kenosha.